The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's hump day in the Riv.
Oh, no.
After a council meeting.
And after the weather from hell.
After weather, yeah. They had a tornado at the Cape.
Yeah, I know.
Ripped the roof right off down at Harwich and
Yarmouth.
And Yarmouth. Yeah. They think Harwich actually got the worst, they said.
Yeah.
They didn't have any film of it yesterday, but... So even though tornadoes are very rare in this part of the country, it just goes to show that you can actually get some. So
I guess that climate change has no...
No, we don't have any climate change. Don't worry about it. They're just denying it. Oh, God, where do we begin today? We got so many things. Let's see. Fall River Marijuana Dispensary sold for the second time in 4 years. Who cares?
And it still hasn't opened.
That's right.
It's the one that's located behind the Applebee's.
Well, they're probably going to. They're probably reading the newspaper articles that they want to build a whole bunch of other ones. So now they know they're not going to make the profit they anticipated. So they're dumping it before they even open the doors.
Exactly.
It's like, see you later. I don't want to be in this business here because they're going to open 500 of them, and we're going to have to split the profits 500 ways instead of 4. So. Again, here we go again, and then now we have Fall River considering a ban on plastic bags. Well, you know, here we go. I don't even want to anything that has bags in it. We should never touch. Fall River should not be.
Well, what's interesting is 2 years ago I sent the city council. I even wrote the ordinance for this.
Yeah.
And they let it die. They didn't even talk about it. Then all of a sudden, Pamela Liberté-LeBeau wants to bring it up, and now she's the high and mighty one with it. You know, think about this for a second. Sometimes ideas come from other places besides the city council seat.
But that politicians have to take credit for everything. Anything that they do, even if they didn't do it, they're going to take credit for it. So that's the best idea.
And the worst part about it was, they put it on hold until the state came out with their version of the ban. And guess what? I knew the state wasn't going to come out with a version of the ban. I knew it was going to die in committee, and it did.
Hey, don't feel bad. That's the way politicians operate. I was just looking at a bill. I was going through some old paperwork to refile it and get rid of the stuff that I don't need anymore. And I came over the bill that I wrote about helping seniors, retirees with their prescription medications after they reach 70, and I proposed the bill, wrote the draft, sent it up to Boston, and I testified. I still have the pictures of us testifying in front of the joint committee up there, and guess what? Once it got filed, my name was never mentioned again. So, and it was my idea, but who cares? As long as we got it, but we haven't got it. I believe that goes back to 14 now. That's how long it's been.
It's another thing that dies in committee.
Yeah, because it's for the people who worked for their whole lives. Again,
God forbid
if you work your whole life and all you're supposed to do is keep your mouth shut and pay your taxes and fees and give everybody else that didn't work or as a politician something for nothing. That segues us into another one. Gateway Cities program expanded for more investment. What a crock that is. Didn't we a while back, didn't you just send me an email about Gateway Cities lead in evictions?
Yes.
So, again, and part of this really gets me. South Main Street Revitalization District, Fall River announced Tuesday, quote, and I hope this quote is accurate because we're going to get into another inaccurate quote later. So let's hope the Herald News is better with their quotes, because I hate to tell you this, but if there are quotation marks on something, it's supposed to be exact. That means it's a quote. It is verbatim. Quote, "We'll focus on attracting residents and visitors Well, residents are there anyway, so if you can't attract them, you got to the area by improving the. This one kills me. I just can't. They actually said that. The real and perceived safety of the area. Connecting the art districts. Didn't even know we had an arts district. I assume we're going to get I guess they consider, graffiti art. Increasing nightlife, where you're going to have nightlife, assisting in small business development, and increasing connectivity to the waterfront, unquote. Connectivity to the waterfront. What is perceived safety? That means that you only think it's safe. That's what perception means. So you perceive something. This is your opinion of something. This is what you think it is. It's a perception. And the reality is, who cares about perceived safety? If the place isn't safe, we shouldn't be having people out there. Real safety, real and perceived. Only a politician could come up with a BS statement like that. This whole thing is a joke. And where are they putting them? This is government again, spending your tax money, throwing it in a toilet and flushing it. We're going to spend all kinds of money again trying to get, putting lipstick on a pig and thinking that if we have real and perceived safety, a whole bunch of people are going to flock to these gateway cities that lead the state in crime and drug use. So, forget about that one.
They already. This is what's interesting. They've put aside for this program in grant money $450,000, and they've already given $270,000 in TDI local grants. Now this is a program.
So we're up around $750,000. We're
this
hovering.
is a program on top of a program too.
Well,
because the first program didn't work.
What a surprise. The government ran it. It's a government program. So what does the government always do? If you don't do your job, if you don't maintain the buildings, you keep collecting your salary, you get a pay raise, they do an investigation, and they hire a whole bunch of other people to pay not to do the job.
That's right.
And then 10 years later or 20 years later, they'll hire more people, and before you know it, there'll be 500 people in charge of maintenance, none of them doing their job.
Just look at the Stanley Street Fire Station. It was closed again on Monday.
That's right.
For mold, again.
How many times, and how many roofs have they put on the Globe Fire Station, even though they knew from the get-go that flat roof, all they had to do was put a slight pitch so there'd be drainage, and they wouldn't have the problem. We have literally spent millions of dollars repairing that roof, and the disrepair it caused to the station because of water getting into the station.
You act like it's your money.
Well, you're right, CJ, I do. And by the way, I just thought of it. It is. It's our money. It is our money. You're right. But, it just boggles my mind. And, while we're getting them on government BS, I love this one, the Boston Patch. Lawmakers stop RMV, Registry of Motor Vehicles, in case you don't know what that little bunch of letters means. Inquiry after Baker withholds officials. What's Charlie worried about? We're going to find out all those political ticks that he embedded into the registry were responsible for not doing their work. Don't worry about it, Charlie. You guys all do that. And we keep, well, not me, but we keep electing people like you that put these ticks in. And what are we going to do? Have an inquiry. Have an investigation. It's like Mueller this morning. I was sitting there with a hammer banging myself on the side of the head. Already in an hour, I was already totally fried after listening to that circus, but we'll get into that later.
And that's going on for the rest of the day.
I know, what a horror show that is. But, again, we're doing it to the RMV. What is the problem with the RMV? Why do we need an inquiry? Why don't we find out who was responsible for making sure that not once but twice this danger to the road should have had his license revoked.
There's 1,300 of them.
And he killed. I know, but that's post-investigation.
Exactly.
So
post-preliminary
look,
investigation.
Yeah, exactly. But see, this is the key. We got a situation where we know why this happened. The registry didn't do their job. So the guy killed 7 people, which is horrific and a tragedy. So if it was a one-time thing and some clerk misfiled it, as horrible as it may seem, you could probably say, well, it's as terrible as it is, it's an unfortunate thing. But then when we begin to scratch the surface of the government ineptness and all these people that get these jobs and don't have to do any work, we're up to 1,300 people who should have had their licenses revoked. 1,300 potential murderers on the road. Not that they wouldn't drive without a license, because most of these people are habitual criminals. How many people have we seen that were in drunken driving accidents and killed people driving without a license? Their license had already been revoked. And then again, that's about the punishment. We should be giving these people 10 years in jail minimum for any kind of vehicular homicide. But no, they're politically connected. So Charlie's withholding it. But again, we never, ever, ever hold a political tick or a politician accountable. Virtually 99% of the time, nothing. The people who are responsible for this, you think this inquiry is going to mean terminations? Hell no. All those people got their job because they know somebody.
Probably means a pay raise.
Probably will be. You know what it means? A whole bunch of more people coming into the registry. Then they'll come up with some sophisticated thing. We're going to fix this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And what happens? Nothing. Look at Raimondo in Rhode Island with DCYF, with the computers. What are we on? The 4th or 5th time she spent more money, done things, done studies, do everything. They do nothing. Well, the first thing you do if you want to fix something, especially lack of performance, is you hold people accountable. Do you think that the people in the registry would do their job if they fired everybody that was responsible for doing this processing? You have 1,300 cases that they didn't do anything about, and probably more to come. We're not even counting the cases that a politician called up and had it just completely taken out of the pile and stuck in the shredder. So this is the thing that bothers me, because look, we're victims every day. Every time you pull out your wallet to pay your taxes and pay these fees, while these people who don't do their jobs get paid 6-figure salaries, don't do their job, and then they come back to you and say, well, we got a maintenance department, we're paying somebody to maintain our buildings, but they don't maintain our buildings, so we're going to build a new building, you're going to pay for it, we're going to give them a pay raise, and we're going to hire them some help. And whose fault is it? Your fault. You vote for them. There are no consequences. Where's the massive investigation? We were talking a few shows a while back about civilian oversight on police and its viability. Police officers are out there doing their job every day. They put their uniform on, they strap their gun belt on, and they walk out in the streets. Get water thrown on them, get hit in the head with buckets, and then they're condemned, as they did in New York City. These people are doing their jobs. But they should be monitored, obviously. But it's these bureaucrats in these offices that is sitting there in an air-conditioned RMV office and whose job it is. What's more important than dealing with people who are should have their license revoked because they're dangerous on the road. What, I don't know, CJ, can you think of something that the registry does that's more important than that facet of their job? I don't know. Maybe
Collect my registry fees.
Well, I'm not talking about in their mind. I'm talking about in the mind of an average citizen. Is it more important? This to me, and if any of you can figure out something that they do that's more important, like I said, and you're right, to them, the biggest thing is collecting fees.
Right.
And they love fees. So, but I think that's their most important job. And now we have not one, not two, 1,300 people who should have had their license revoked in this state with dangers on the road and they were not processed. They were allowed to be out on the roads and the streets and the highways of this state or any other state they drove in with the potential havoc they were going to wreak. And what's going to happen to them? Well, the head of the RMV resigned, but she'll get another political job because that's what they do with political jobs. They give them to people.
Look at what they did in Rhode Island. I mean, they just moved everybody.
Exactly.
Which while I'm on Rhode Island real quick, I love the fact that they finally decided to take over the Providence school system because it's a national, mess. It makes national headlines how bad it is, but they can't do anything until November. We're gonna take it over. The school year begins in September, but we can't do anything until November. We have a plan for September, but we can't do anything until November.
Of course.
This is the government.
This is your government at work. All you have to do is turn your TV on now on any station and watch our federal government in action, and you'll watch that three-ring circus that we have a government while we're paying the highest drug costs in the world. You can go to any other country on the planet Earth and pay less for your American drug than you do in the United States. As I say numerous times, the CEO of CVS Caremark's annual salary is $32.8 million a year. We have the other bonehead from the other pharmaceutical company that jacked up the price of EpiPens and got an $18 million pay raise for raping the American public. But is Congress busy doing that? No, they're out there throwing ridiculous questions and snowballs over at Mueller this morning, and right out of the gate, the whole thing. I turned it on, the first 3 seconds, it was over. Nate is trying to get him to say he was guilty of obstruction, and he said, right here in this page, you said it's a do you feel? And he said, no. He said, in other words, Nader was trying to allude to the fact in a very obtuse way, but he was trying to allude to the fact that if he wasn't the president, he had done enough to be charged with obstruction.
Right.
But Mueller said, no, that's not what I meant. In other words, there wasn't enough evidence for me to make that statement, and he could have made that statement. So right out of the gate, what did he do? He just went, oh crap, and he moved on to the next subject because he blew it up right there. And now it's going to be a contest of the Republicans picking on one side and the Democrats picking on another to rehash something that's already been rehashed 1,000,000 times while they're sitting on their thumbs and you're paying the highest drug costs in the world. We got people coming into this country with diseases, drugs, everything else you can name, and they're doing nothing about it. And by the way, the squad, who's always complaining about the horrible conditions in these detention centers, every single one of them voted against an appropriation for beds for the children.
There you go.
So, you know why? Because they want this to be there. They want something to talk about. But nobody calls them on it because the mainstream media is afraid to say anything. They did not vote for beds. They haven't voted for anything to help fix the problem they're complaining about. Because they want that problem to exist. Because without it, we actually would have to listen to what they know, which is nothing. You know, and it's just mind-boggling to watch this. And it is the theater of the absurd. It's the theater of the absurd. I mean, that's
It's the federal government.
and what disturbs me is all of these people get reelected. It's like, damn, will you put somebody in there that will do some work for us? They've been talking about controlling drug prices for the last decade. They've had hearings, again, inquiries like Baker is trying to stonewall on the state level. How many times have they had pharmaceutical reps? They had the guy that was said, the hell with cancer people, let them all die. I don't care. I got the drug that'll cure them. If they can't afford it, let them die. I don't care. That was already, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe longer.
And people have forgotten about it
Time
already.
flies when you're having fun. But what have they done about it? Absolutely nothing.
Like I said, people have forgotten about it
All
already.
they're worried about is getting reelected and getting Trump out of there. So, but you know, as I said, the theater of the absurd, it's gone from the ridiculous to the sublime. And it just disturbs me. And now let's get to our favorite thing, the big deal here. Fall River Mayor Jasiel clashes with City Council over marijuana, quote-unquote, kickback accusation. And we have the letters here, CJ.
Well, we got partial letters.
Well,
yes.
partial letters. But again, I guess Kevin J. Reddington, one of the most highest priced criminal lawyers in the state, sent Mr. Cadime a letter, and I'm assuming, and you shouldn't assume, but this is a photocopy of a letter. And it doesn't look like it's been altered, but he says, your observation that, quote, we are no, unquote. You know, Kevin, you want to hire CJ or I to proofread your stuff, you charge probably the highest rates in you know, if you're going to write a letter and complain about somebody, I don't think Shawn Cadime said we are no. Probably said we all know. And if I remember correctly from the Herald News article, I think he did say we all know.
Nope. Your observation that we are no, SIC, is either an actionable statement which is malicious per se or made with reckless regard for the truth. Reddington wrote, I believe you are just speaking for the sake of garnering some publicity to further your own agenda.
Well, you know, number one, slander, and he said you slanderous comments. Slander doesn't apply to politicians. Slander and libel laws don't apply. But secondly, if you're going to write a letter, especially a quote is supposed to be accurate. That's why it's a quote. You put quotation marks.
That's right.
Otherwise, it's a paraphrase.
That's right.
And even if it's a paraphrase, if you want to be technical, if you paraphrase someone, you should give them, you should give them credit. You should cite them.
Correct.
Put a footnote in and cite them when you're paraphrasing. But as every once in a while, when I throw a quote out to City Council, you'll notice, or even here, I will say that I will read it. And I very rarely read. I speak normally without the, not from a teleprompter. But if I'm quoting, I will normally read the quote because I'm reading it verbatim. And it's exactly what the quote says. So, you know, Kevin, give Jasiel some money back on this letter because if whatever you charged them,
you charge too much.
you charged them too much. You know, you didn't even get a quote accurate. So.
I love the last line of his letter, though. Further irresponsible, childish comments of this incendiary nature will be made at your own legal peril.
Wow. Imagine throwing the childish card at Cadime when we're talking about the mayor.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That's kind of the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it?
But, you know, it's interesting because in his letter...
I like it, though. Does he get extra
Gets
money
extra
for
points.
using sesquipedalian words?
I guess maybe he does.
Incendiary, and I mean, maybe that's why he gets so much money, because he has, you know, he's got his thesaurus and his pocket thesaurus with him at all times.
What was interesting was the fact that he told Shawn Cadime that he should take this matter to the U.S. attorney. So what did Shawn Cadime do?
He took it to the
He
U.S.
took it to the U.S. attorney. And Shawn said, I strongly believe in holding public officials accountable for their actions and would be happy to provide you with any assistance I can to bring an end to this public corruption, which in my opinion has plagued the city of Fall River since 2016, wrote Cadime, referencing the year Correia took office. Correia declined to comment on the intent of Reddington's letter. He responded instead with a list of achievements in a text message. I'm busy saving money, adding more public safety officials, increasing school funding, eliminating more fees, and making our community beautiful. All of which Councilor Cadime has been against under my tenure. He should focus more on positive than personal. This is becoming the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah, and I just wanted, because I am always accurate, because it doesn't in the letter have the sick. I believe that the Herald News put
the Herald News put that in there.
Put the sick. So for you people who don't, I'm going to give you verbatim. It's used in brackets after a copy of the quoted words that appears odd or erroneous to show that the word is quoted exactly as it stands in the original letter. So just to confirm it's no longer a hypothesis. We have proven that this quote does appear to be incorrect, and even the Herald News picked it up.
Yeah, and that's that says something, because the Herald News is notorious for spelling errors.
The sick in brackets means that it may appear that it's incorrect, but that's exactly the way it was said. It's like if you use a malapropism. I'm getting out my sesquipedalians now, so we can, if Kevin wants to throw around sesquipedalians, we'll try to be as pedantic as possible, and if we want to throw in the old archaic one, it pedantic used to be referred to as altisonant. But that is now out of the dictionary, because that was a phrase used, a word used in the early English. But
if it's on Jeopardy, you'd win.
This is crazy. This is what we spend our time with. These are allegations, and you know something, it's political. And as you said, the mayor is good at using everything as a campaign stump.
Right.
He calls a press conference, and it's a campaign speech. It's not a press conference. It's a vehicle for him. As you said, he's not going to deal with these accusations. What he's going to deal with is politic. I'm doing so much for the city. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. He's running for office. So, not doing business as our Congress is right now. They're running for office. They're actually assisting in the presidential election by doing all this. They're not doing the business of the people. They are not fixing the problems of the United States. We are being overrun with illegals. And those illegals are bringing in drugs, diseases, crime. And I have no problem with immigration, legal immigration, because all our ancestors came here, but they came here legally. Many of them came through Ellis Island and got the wrong names because they couldn't understand English, but they all persevered and pulled themselves up. There is no reason, no valid reason to allow people to come in here when there are people all over the world trying to do it the right way and come in, just like your ancestors did, whether they came over on the Mayflower or they came over the great ice bridge from Asia, like the Indians did and the Eskimos did. But, if this doesn't irritate you, turn on any of the news stations and watch the Mueller circus. Because if that doesn't irritate you, I don't know what will.
Well, people are going to be upset, especially if it, interrupts their soaps or anything.
Oh yeah, if the soap operas, that's it. If they interrupt the soap operas, it'll be like the time they interrupted a football game with Heidi. Remember that so many years ago? They almost attacked the TV stations because they They preempted a football game to show Heidi.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday.